Hello. Today we're going to be looking at solving equations using the distributive property. Bear with me as we do our first recording of the year. The equation we're going to look at is going to be 5 plus 7 times 2x minus 3 equals 12. Now, as I'm going through these examples, I recommend having your MJ open and following along with me so that you can practice writing this as I am going through the problem at the same time. What I'm drawing now is what we have come to know as the wall, and it's what is expected every time you are solving an equation. This will help set your work up to be neat and orderly. Now, when we solve anything, we always want to follow the order of operations, in which we get rid of parentheses first. In order to get rid of these parentheses, we need to look at multiplying. We remember that when a number is right next to a parentheses, it does mean multiply. A common mistake that I see is people will try to add the 5 plus 7 first. If you remember, adding and subtracting are at the very end of our order of operations, and so make sure you do those at the very end. Now the distributive property typically looks like a rainbow. I'm going to want to multiply the 7 to both terms going across, first to 2x and then the minus 3. I'll start with the first, 7 times 2x. Then I'm going to do the 7 times the minus 3. Now I'm going to just put minus 7 times 3. Okay, so far we've multiplied or distributed out the 7. Don't forget that we still have the 5 at the beginning. Now each time we go through, we make sure that we're following the equation down. On the right side, I simply have just to carry down the 12. I have not done anything to that side. From here on out, we're going to simplify. I have 5 plus 7 times 2x will give me 14x. Minus 7 times 3 is 21. And that's going to be equal again to 12. Next up, we'd like to combine like terms. So I have a couple of units here and a few more right there. So I like to keep the x's first. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to keep the 14x out front. And now when I combine 5 positives with 21 negatives, I'm still left with a bunch of negatives, 16 to be exact, is equal to 12. Again, as I'm going through, notice how my equal sign goes right down the wall as I'm working. After this, then we're down to what we call the two-step equation, because there's 2 steps until we are finished. Because we're subtracting the 16, we're going to add 16 to both sides. This is where we're finally going to do something to the right side. On the left, what we are going to be left with is the 14x. Purposes of adding and subtracting is so that you're left with 0 units on one side. On the right side, then, we end up with 28. Convenience because of our 14x's left over. Our final step then, because it is 14 times x, is I'm going to divide by 14. Divide by 14. Again, something we talked about briefly in class is we want to make sure we write it as a fraction, because you are able to leave your answers in fraction form when necessary. However, we know that 14 does go into 28 twice. After you finish the problem, you want to go back and check to make sure that your answer does make sense with what you've got. So we ended up with 2. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite this entire problem, and here's how you can always check your answer and know for sure that you're right. 5 plus 7 times 2x minus 3 equals 12. Now, since we've solved it and we know that x equals 2, I'm going to put 2 in right here for x. Okay, so here I go. I have 5 plus 7 times 2 times 2 minus 3, hopefully that gives us 12. And you know what I forgot to do is the wall. It is also helpful when we start to check our work just to make sure we remember what's on both sides. I'm going to simplify what is on the inside of the parentheses, and I have 5 plus 7 times 4 minus 3, which is 1. Does that equal 12? And I'm looking like it probably does. And we get 5 plus 7 times 1 is 7, and we end up with then 12 does equal 12. On this next page, if you'd like to have a few more practice problems, search for videos or help on khanacademy.org. Once you get to that site, if you search for distributive property, he has a bunch of different examples that you can see. A few of them are fairly basic. If you want a specific algebraic example, try searching for distributive property example 1, and that will show you some of our more advanced distributive properties that you'll be seeing in the algebra class. With that said, thanks for joining in.